Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video in the Minestom Minecraft server development series. In this video, I'm going to teach you guys how to set player skins. So it's actually really easy to set a player skin just using either a UUID of another player or their username. But what I want to do is show you not only how you can set the skin of a player, but also change their display name and make a disguise command so that you can disguise yourself as some other player and it stays the same when you rejoin the server. So it's persistent while the server is running at least. So I hope this video will be informative for you guys. So we're going to go ahead and create a new command called the disguise command, which again lets you disguise yourself as another player. And the command will just be /disguise like that. And then we'll add our default executor. So set default executor like that. And what we want to do is make it so that whenever the player runs /disguise, we can change their skin. So first of all, we're going to need to make sure that the person who ran the command is a player. So we could say if command sender is an instance of player. Otherwise, if they're not a player, we're going to send them a message saying you must be a player. You can change a player skin by doing player.setSkin. It's really that easy. And to this, you provide a player skin object, and you can obtain that by doing player skin dot, and then you have either from username or from UUID. So if you like someone's skin and you know your username, all you gotta do is provide their username to this method, and it will give you their skin that you can set on any player on your server. So as long as you know someone's name, that's possible. Otherwise, you could use their UUID, and if you don't know what that is, it's the unique identifier that every single Minecraft account has. So if you also know their UUID, you can get their skin as well. You can also get a player's UUID by doing player.getUUID, just like that. That's a way to get it. So there's websites like this that allow you to find people's skins, given their account name. So you have like this guy here, Snacky Diamond. This is his skin, so that's his username. So all you gotta do is provide that to the method. Or if you click into it, this is their UUID that you can also use as well, okay? The reason you might want to use a UUID versus their username is because a username can be changed, but the same Minecraft account will always have the same UUID. So if a Minecraft account changes their username, their UUID is gonna be the same, so you could still use that skin and grab it, whatever you need to do, okay? So that is a better way if you can find their UUID. But yeah, basically you can just search around here for skins that you like, and you can choose them and use them. So you got Peter the Platypus here, so we could use him. So I'll just copy this guy's name, and let's see if we can use him. So player.setSkin, we're going to do playerskin.from username, and then provide the username of the player that we're trying to get the skin for. So we're getting their skin and then setting it on the player who ran the command. And that's it. That's literally all you got to do. It's really easy. So then we can go back to our main method here and add that command. So Minecraft server.get command manager.register new disguise command, just like that. And now let's try it out. All right, back on the server now, so we can do /disguise, and boom, our skin has transformed. We are now Perry the Platypus. Looking good. So I think I can do like F5. There we go. So pretty cool. So I'm literally that skin now, which is awesome. And you can do this to any player on your Minecraft server, as long as you can get an instance of their player object, right? In this case, it's just the person who ran the command. We're getting them as a player if they are a player who ran the command, and we're setting their skin. You can also change a player's display name so that they show up on the tab list as a certain player. They basically become that player in a way. So that's why it's called /disguise as well. So you could do that really easily by doing player.setDisplayName, and then to this you pass a component. So you just do component.text, and you can say Perry the Platypus. I believe that's how you spell it. All right, I'm back. So now we can do /disguise again, and boom, now I'm Perry the Platypus. And if I hold tab, I can see that my username is now Perry the Platypus. So really, really cool. One thing though is that if I rejoin the server, I am no longer Perry the Platypus. I'm back to Illuminati with my Santa skin. So the skin changes and the display name changes are not persistent. If you leave the server, it gets reset when you rejoin, because whenever you join the server, there's events that basically grab your information and set it as you're joining the server. So I want to do two things. I want to make it so that this command can take in anyone's username and then set the skin for the player and also their display name. So basically you can disguise yourself as any player just in Minecraft using their account username if you can find it. And then also what we're going to do is make it so that all these disguises are saved persistently if you rejoin the server. So basically you can become Obama or Trump or something like that. You leave the server, you come back, and you're still Obama or Trump or whoever. So that's the idea behind that. So let's start by making it so that we can become any player. So for that, we're going to add a argument. So var username arg is equal to argument type dot string, and then we'll just call this username. And then we're going to add our syntax for that. So add a syntax So make sure that the sender is an instance of player because we cannot change the skin of someone who's not a player. And then else, if they are not a player, we'll say the same thing as before. Only players can use this command, like that. And then, so if they are a player, what we want to do is grab that username that they provided when they ran the command. So string username is equal to context, or rather command context is what it's called, get, and then username arg. And then the rest is simple. All we got to do is just copy this, or cut it rather, paste it, and let's add player to this. So if they're a player, you're going to get the player variable. You're going to set the skin based on the one that they provided. So we're going to change this from that to the one that they provided. And then we're going to change this to the one they provide as well. So when they run the command, not only will their skin change to that player, but their display name will change as well. So now one last thing we need to do is just change the default executor just to say how to properly run the command. We'll say sender.sendMessage usage / disguise username. So they cannot run the command without any arguments. They need to provide the argument, which is the username. Okay, so that's it. That's all we got to do. So let's try it out. All right, I'm back on the server now, so I can do /disguise, and I can just provide no arguments. But then if I do Bob, I become Bob. So that's what Bob looks like. He's pretty derpy looking. He even has a cape, which is really cool. So I have a Minecraft cape now. I can even become Trump if I want to. So I can do /disguise Trump. Look at that. Donald Trump, really cool. And also if I hold tab, you can see that my display name changes as well. So I will appear to other players as Trump. I can do Obama as well. So now I'm Obama and I look like Obama. So I don't know about you guys, but I think that's pretty cool. So now let's make it so that if I rejoin the server, I still have my disguise on, right? Because currently I don't. And the main thing that you sort of have to decide is how you're going to store this information. What we have to do is store players who have a disguise and also what their disguise is, okay? And so an easy way to do that is with a hash map. Hopefully you know what a hash map is. It's a map meaning that it has a bunch of key value pairs inside of it. So the key would be the identifier, so the player's username or their UUID perhaps. And then the value of that key value pair would be the actual person that they're disguising themselves as. So with that said, we're going to go to our project structure here, make a new package called managers. You can call it services, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to make a new Java class called the disguise manager. So this class has the responsibility of managing people who are disguised and just doing everything regarding disguising, right? So to store these disguises, we're going to do private final map. And to this, we need our key value pair data type. So we're going to do a UUID. This allows us to uniquely identify a player. And then we have their string. And just like I mentioned before, it's common practice. It's recommended to use a player's UUID versus their username because that will be the same no matter like what username they have. They can change their username. The UUID will always be the same for a specific Minecraft account. So we're going to call this map the disguise players. I guess just disguise players, that probably works. And we're going to say is equal to new hash map. A hash map is just an implementation of map that does hashing. Okay, so all of our disguised players will be inside of there. So if a player is disguised, they're going to have an entry inside of this map with their UUID and also the player that they're disguised as. If they undisguise themselves, it will be removed from this map. So let's just add some methods here. So we're going to do public boolean is disguised. I think that's a good first one to have. So we can use that. We can pass in a player and see if that player is disguised by simply saying return disguised players dot contains key player dot get UUID. So all we're doing is checking to see if this map has that player within it based on their UUID. Let's add another method to actually do the disguising. So public void, because we don't need to return anything, disguise player. We're gonna pass in the player that we're trying to disguise. So player, and then we're gonna pass in their username of the person that they're trying to become essentially. And so what we want to do is first of all add the player to this map here. So disguise players dot put, and we're going to do player dot get UUID. And then the username that they're trying to become. And then now we could do player.setSkin. We can do player_skin.from username, same as before. And then player.setDisplayName, component.text, username. And that's it. So we're adding the player to the disguised players map so that we know that they're currently being disguised. And then we're setting their skin and their display name. Let's go ahead and add another method to remove their disguise. So public void remove disguise. Pass in the player. So first we want to remove them from our map because we are no longer disguising that player, right? So remove player.getUUID. And then now we want to set their skin and their username back to what it was before, their actual real information. So player.setSkin, and we can do player_skin.from UUID player.getUID. So that's going to grab the actual skin of that player from Mojang. And you want to convert that UUID to a string, by the way. So that's going to give the player's UUID as a string. It's going to pass that into this method. This will internally grab the player's actual skin from Mojang and then set it on the player so they appear back as their regular skin. And then now we could do player.setDisplayName component.text. And then now we want to do and we don't want to do player.getDisplayName because that's their fake, alias, that's their disguise, what they appear as to other players. We want to get their actual username, so we can do that just by doing get username. So this will always be their actual Minecraft account username. So that will set it onto the player as their display name, so they appear back as how they should appear normally. Okay, so hopefully this is all making sense so far. So now we have this little manager class that can manage all of the players who are currently disguised. So now we have a way of tracking the players, whether they are on the server or not, if they're disguised currently. So as long as the server is running, whoever is in this map here is currently disguised. So basically whenever they're on the server, they run /disguise to become a player. It adds them to this map here. And then if they leave the server, they're still going to be in the map. And so to make it so that whenever they join the server, they still have their disguise on, all we have to do is that when the player joins the server, we check to see if they're in the map. If they are, we get their disguise, the person who they're trying to become, and then set it back on the player. But now what we need to do is make it so that we can access this disguise manager class inside of our command here. And there's different ways you could do this, but an easy way is to go back to main and just basically anywhere you can instantiate that disguise manager class as an object. So I think I'll just do it up here. So we're going to say create managers. We're going to say var disguise manager is equal to new disguise manager, like that. And the whole idea here is that we only have one instance of this class here. It's a singleton, meaning there's only one single instance that we inject into other classes that need it, okay? Where's the place that we need it? We need it inside the disguise command, right? So to do that, all we got to do is add into our disguise command constructor disguise manager. So disguise manager, we're passing it into the constructor, and then now we could use it inside of here as much as we want. So now back here, all we got to do is pass it in. So we instantiate it up here, and then we pass it into where it's needed. That way we're not creating new disguise managers every time we need it, and there's only one instance of this map therefore, because it wouldn't make sense to have multiple instances of this class here and have multiple maps. Alright, so I really hope all that is making sense so far. So now that we have access to the disguise manager within our disguise command, we can now replace this logic with the logic that we have inside that manager. So we can do disguise manager.disguise player, pass in the player, pass in the username. So that should still do the disguising, just in a different place. Let's test it out. Only one way to find out if it works. Back on the server, so now I can do /disguise trump. And I am that person now, but if I rejoin, it still does not give me my disguise back because we have not implemented that part. So we know they're in that map when we run /disguise now, so we need to grab it when they join. So when a player joins the server, there's a bunch of events that fire off basically to set up just like a bunch of things for the player. One of which is the async player configuration event that we're already using, because that's what we use to set the player's spawning instance and also their coordinates for where they spawn. This, however, is not going to be what we need because this is, I think, fired at the very beginning of the events that are called. So there's other events for that, like the player skin init event. So that's called when a player joins the server and they're trying to initialize their skin. And then there's also the player spawn event, which is when they actually appear on the server. So let's add listeners for those. But one thing is that it's getting kind of cluttered when we add listeners to our main method like this. So someone rightly pointed out that we should try and move those into other files so that there's a little more structure in our application. It's ordered a little bit better. Since everything we're about to do is going to be player related events, what I'm going to do is create a class that represents our top level player event node. So what I'm going to do is create a new listeners package. And within that, we're going to create a new Java class player event listener. I'm sure there's other ways of doing this, but this is a way that I find to be pretty decent. So player event listener, and then within this we could just have a public static events node. We'll just set the type to a question mark for now. And we just say get event node. And then inside of here we can create our event node. So var event node is equal to event node dot type, which will allow us to filter our event node to a specific type. So we'll do players node. And then the type we want is the event filter player. Because like I said before, this is going to be like the top level node for all the player related events. So now that we have this event node, we can add listeners to it. So we can do event node.add listener and add whatever we want, right? And then once that's done, we can return the event node. And so now since we have this single class here for all of our player related listeners, it's a little bit more structured, right? Because it's separate from all this stuff that we have inside of here. And all we have to do is inside of main, just call get event node from this class here. That way we don't have to do all of this logic inside of here directly. So currently we are using the global event handler and adding our async player configuration event. But now let's move that into our new class here so it's a little bit more structured. So I'm just going to cut all of this and remove this. And then now here we can paste it. And now we are still listening to the async player configuration event, just in a different place under the event node players node, filtering for only player events. And the only problem here is that we don't have access to the instance that we're trying to spawn the player in. And that's okay. All we got to do is add it as a parameter to this method here. So we can just pass in a instance. We call it the spawning instance. And then now whoever calls this method just has to pass in that spawning instance, right? So now back in main, all we have to do is do global event handler, add a child, and then now we could grab that event node by doing player event listener dot get event node. And now it wants the spawning instance, which we have above. It's our instance container. Just go ahead and pass that in like that. So instance container. And there we go. So now we're saving space in our main method, having less clutter inside of here. And now we have a separate place for all of our player related events, which is great. Okay, so let's get back to what we were doing before. The goal here is to make it so that when the player joins the server, if they currently have a disguise set, meaning they're in that map inside of the disguise manager, we want to apply that disguise so that they still have it when they join the server, right? So one of the things that we could have is an event node listener. So event node.add listener, and then we're gonna have one for the player skin init event. And if we do control Q, it actually, let me download the documentation real quick. Now if I do control Q, it says called at the player connection to initialize his skin. So this is actually the perfect place to set the player skin because that's, what it's for. So, and if we take a look at what we got here, we got event.getPlayer, so the player involved, we could set their skin and also get their skin. All we got to do is literally call set skin and then pass in the proper skin that we're trying to disguise them as. But before we do that, we need to see if they are disguised. And that's pretty easy. All we got to do is get access to our disguise manager and then call is disguised. So what this means is that we need to get an instance of our disguise manager inside of here, and we could do that by passing it in the same way we did with the instance. So we'll just add a second parameter to this, the disguise manager. And then now back in our main, when we call this, we can pass in our disguise manager that we instantiated above. And that's called dependency injection. When you have one single instance of a class and you put it or inject it into another class like that where it's needed. So now we can do if event.getPlayer. Let me cut that actually and do disguise manager dot is disguised, pass that in. So if that player is disguised, this will return true. So now we need to get their disguise. And we don't really have a method to do that yet. So let's add one. So we'll do public string because we're storing the username of the person that they're disguised as. So we want to do get disguise and pass in the player that we're trying to get it for. So we're going to return disguised players.get player.getUUID. So that should return the value. So now back here we can do string disguise username is equal to disguise manager dot get disguise event dot get player. And then now that we have the username, we can finally set the skin of the player by doing event dot set skin. And then we could pass in player skin dot from username and then disguise username. Okay, so I really hope this is all making sense. We're simply listening to the player skin init event. So this will be triggered when the player is joining the server. And this is for configuring the player skin. So we're checking to see if the player involved in that event is disguised. If they are, we're getting the username they're disguised as and then setting their skin. So when they join the server, they'll have the skin. One thing that we also want to do though is do event.getPlayer.set display name component.text disguise username, because we can't forget we also need to set their display name back to what it was because that's also reset. That's it. So let's try it out now. All right, back in the server now. So if I do /disguise Bob, I am now Bob, right? But if I join the server again, I am still Bob. You can see that the skin is still Bob, which is great. But if I hold tab, I'm still Illuminati. And the reason is because we have these different events that are essentially triggered when a player joins the server. This is only one of a couple. So there's other events that happen. So we can only assume that there's another event that happens after this that also sets the player's display name at some point. So it's getting overridden essentially because we are clearly setting it here. So something is overriding it. So what that means is that this is not the proper event for changing that, so we want to change it somewhere else. One that I have chosen here is going to be event node.add listener player spawn event. So this one is, I think, one of the last one, if not the last event that will be triggered during the player join process, because this is dealing with when the player joins the actual instance. So called when a new instance is set for the player. So when the players actually spawn in the instance in the world, this will be called, and we can use this as an opportunity to set their display name as well. So let's just literally copy all of this here. So checking to see if they're disguised. We're not going to set their skin because we're already doing that here in the skin init event. Instead, we are setting their display name to the disguise that we have. Okay, we are now Billy. Looks good to me. So if I rejoin now though, I am still Billy, as you can see, so that's great. And that's literally it. That's how you can implement a simple disguise feature for your Minecraft server. All we had to do is come up with a way to save the players who are disguised currently, along with the thing that they're disguised as, and then make sure that when they join the server, reapply that disguise to the player. One other thing though, real quick, is what I want to show you is how to undisguise the player. So we can add a simple command for that. We'll call it undisguise command. Okay, so I just went and implemented this already, so you don't have to see me type all this out. But yeah, basically we're checking to see if the player is a player. If they are, then we're going to check to see if they're disguised. If they are not, we're going to tell them they're not disguised, so that, it doesn't really do anything. If they are disguised, we want to remove the disguise, so we're calling this method that we already made before that sets their skin and their display name back to what it was originally, and that's it. So we're just telling them, you're no longer disguised. So that's it. So now we got to go back to our main method here and just add a command for that. And I just like to leave comments here so we can add listeners, events nodes, then we could register commands. So now let's try this out, see if it works. Okay, back on the server. So now I'm going to call myself Booger. So I am now a Booger, it looks like. Looking good. Very nice. But if I rejoin the server, I should still be a Booger. I am still a Booger, but if I undisguise, I am no longer Booger. I'm now Illuminati Santa Claus. And if I rejoin, I am still myself because I've removed myself from the map when I call remove disguise. And that's it. That's the whole video. Thanks guys for watching. Now you know how to set a player's skin on your Minecraft server and also their display name, and also come up with a simple manager class that you can do to manage your data and do cool stuff, and also order your event node a little better as well. So that's all I got. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace. So that's it for this video, everybody. I really hope you learned something new. If you liked the video, please hit the like button, and if you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Make sure to also check the description below for important links to code and other resources, but also really important, join our Discord. We have a big community of over 5,000 programmers, and it's a place where you can find new friends or get help on any code that you're stuck on. If you want to support what I do on this channel, please consider hitting the join button below, and this will allow you to support my channel for as low as $1 a month, but there are different tiers to choose from if you want to. For anyone that becomes a member on my channel, you get a special rank on my Discord server, early access to new videos, and you can just see yourself on the screen right now. So if that sounds cool to you, feel free to join. If you don't want to, that's fine. If you can't, that's okay too. I really just appreciate you watching the video anyway. Thank you so much. And that's it. Peace.